So how do you gift a fragrance without screwing it up? You don't! For the longest of time, I thought that fragrances are not my thing. And the main reason for that was that I was being gifted these types of scents. Ultra cheap clones of old school scents that smell synthetic and they're just bad. And in this video, I'll make sure that you are not the reason why someone hates fragrances. There are 3 difficulty levels for gifts: easy, medium, and pro, and you get to choose which one fits you the best. So the easy mode is you don't have to choose a specific scent for the person, you just choose a brand and gift them a discovery set. It's a fun experience you can explore with the person together. It's not pressuring them into actually having to use a specific fragrance that they may not like, and also they usually include a discount if the person does decide to buy a full bottle. Some really good options would be Parfums de Marly, an easy, very likable choice for men or women, but what they have in the likability aspect, they're kind of lacking in the uniqueness. The next brand I'd feature is Patchouli Orange. They're more niche, more experimental, but very much liked by people around me, and I think that the price-performance ratio here is really good. If the person is into heavy scents, I would highly recommend Francesca Bianchi. She's an amazing perfumer with an amazing brand, and I can't get enough of her. Her brand is a bit more on the expensive side, around 100 to 130 euros for 30 milliliters, but it is a gift, and a good gift, I think, is something that you would give to a person that they wouldn't buy for themselves, but you still bought for them and they appreciate it. And if the person is into historical personalities, I would highly recommend Histoire de Parfums, such a nice brand. The price point for the full bottles is comparable to Patchouli Orange, and I like that, but here the branding is more towards the side of books, of personalities, of history, while there the themes are more challenging, more provocative, more experimental. And as a bonus, a recent obsession of mine, Disowned. It is a brand that's owned by, in part, the lead singer of Sigur Rós, Jonsi, and the whole aesthetic of this brand, I just can't get over it. If the person loves this ambient sound type of thing, this minimalism, but at the same time aquatic scents with herbaceousness, with herbs all over the place, this is the perfect brand for that. A special recommendation from me would be the Floathold Survival Kit, which features to me the best fragrance of the brand alongside some incense and some nice Icelandic tea. And it's just such an experience. There's this music that you have to play, you brew the tea, you spray the fragrance and you light the incense, and it just permeates the whole space for that moment in time, and it's just so beautiful. So amazing. Love it. The medium level is just the plain old buy them a fragrance. But before that, the don'ts. Do not, for the love of God, buy any random super cheap fragrance that you just spray once and you just, oh, I like that, let's buy that. And if you do decide to buy a fragrance, do not buy the biggest bottle available unless you're 110% sure that the person wants exactly this scent and exactly this much of it. Usually it's much better to buy a smaller bottle of a much more expensive scent. And thirdly, do not fall for the marketing. Not everyone wants to smell fresh and sexy and like the latest and greatest Sauvage. I'm looking at you, Sauvage Eau Forte. So you have to do your research and you have to go more in depth. So by buying a scent, you want to make damn sure that the person doesn't dislike it, because it is a huge commitment. It is a lot of fragrance sprays. So your goal is to find out what scent the person wants to have, but at the same time won't or can't buy. An easy way out could be finding a partner in crime. You just utilize their significant other and ask them, well, what kind of scent do they want on their partner? So at least one person in the relationship will like it. The next best thing is to check their collection, maybe even take a photo of it. Maybe they gravitate towards some brand or some certain types of scents, and that will give you some ideas. And for sure, if they keep their fragrances in the bathroom, oh God, tell them not to do that, please. And if that doesn't work, you can ask them outright. For example, you spray a scent on yourself and you ask them, hey, what do you think of this fragrance? Do Do you like it? Or maybe you could ask this person that you have a friend, you want to gift them a scent, what would they recommend to that friend? And the pro level, which is my favorite, you create your own exclusive fragrance that you can gift to people, and it will smell amazing. Now don't be afraid, it will not cost you a fortune. In fact, it will probably cost you around $100 to $150. To be honest, not that much more expensive than normal fragrances, and at scale it is probably even cheaper. All you need for this is a high precision scale, pretty cheap, around $20, some nitrile gloves, plastic pipettes, a few bottles, a few sprayers, some high proof alcohol. I'm using Spiritus from Poland. If you're in USA, you could go for Everclear. Just make sure that it is actually ethanol and that it is 94 at least percent or 95 of alcohol in the volume, because any less than that probably will cause problems with the essential oils and all that stuff.
All right, let's start working on the fragrance. First things first, the scales are probably going to be cheap and their maximum weight capacity is going to be pretty low. It's really important to have the 0.01 grams precision, but the maximum capacity means that you probably won't be able to put just the full bottle on it because it's going to weigh too much. What we can do though is you can put a plastic cup, or what I have a little beaker, a 10 milliliter beaker. It's quite cheap to get. It is 8 grams roughly, which is good enough for us. So pressing on tare because we want it to be at 0. Once we have the gloves, now we can start working on the fragrance itself. On the screen right now you can see a vetiver based formula. You can replace the vetiver with almost anything, to be honest. So for example, you could put Haitian vetiver if you want a more nutty smell, a Sri Lankan vetiver if you want something more smoky, Java vetiver if you want something more leathery, and then there's also lavender, lavandin, patchouli, amazing smelling material. By the way, vetiver and patchouli, they both are quite safe to use, so you can use almost any amount you want. You can tweak the percentages here, and then the lavender, lavandin, also pretty safe. In the concentrations that I'm providing here, they will be quite safe to use. Obviously labdanum will work also, and what I especially like is Rose Absolute and Jasmine Sambac Absolute. But beware, Rose and Jasmine Absolutes at high concentrations are really unsafe for your skin. They're sensitizers. In Rose we also have a potential carcinogen, so be careful at higher dosages. On average, depending on the concentrations present in each Absolute, the Rose Absolute will be less than 4% and Jasmine Absolute would be less than 3% in a full formulation. But if you want to know the exact percentages that you can use, you should refer to the safety data sheets that usually should be given with the Absolutes that you buy or essential oils. Regardless, without knowing all the technicalities, you will be probably safe because the maximum concentration of the whole fragrance will be 10%, so something like eau de toilette, and the main component in it will be ISO-E Super, which is one of the most popular fragrance ingredients out there. It's used in any perfume, but I do have to mention that in super high concentration, so more than 20%, it is going to be a skin sensitizer and it is not great for marine life. But in the concentrations that we're going to use it, is going to be very much safe to use, and you will get a nice smelling backbone for the fragrance. You could also replace this with Timber Silk or Vertofix. Both are going to smell similar, but they have their own nuances. You can buy it from Amazon easily, but if you want a more specialty shop in US, I would recommend Perfumer's Apprentice, while in EU it would probably be hexerich.nl. I haven't really bought anything in the USA, haven't been there, but I've heard good things about that shop, hexerich.nl. This specific bottle is from there. The next molecule is Hedione, which is super well known as well. It's super safe, really nice. A lot of people don't smell it, but it will really help project your fragrance. It's kind of floral, kind of jasmine-like in a way, but it is very mild, so we're going to use this as a projecting type of a thing. The next raw material is something you maybe would use in your food, and that is vanillin. Obviously, this is just vanillin crystals. It doesn't have to be food grade, but you could use whatever is in the food grade. Just make sure that it doesn't have any sugar in it. This will smooth out some of the rougher edges of the fragrance, and it will make it more palatable in the case of vetiver, for example, or patchouli. It makes them smell a bit more mild and less bitter, less challenging. But be careful and do not overdose it. It can get quite cloying and kind of syrupy quite fast. And the last thing is the essential oil. I recommend either vetiver, which is super easy to make, or here I've got patchouli dark, which is earthy, balsamic, smells really nice, but in high concentrations it's a bit too harsh. And I'm mixing it with Turkish rose, which is super nice smelling. It will create this floral, sweet, sour type of a smell, which is absolutely beautiful. And in this mixture it will work quite well because the concentration is quite low. As for the essential oils, you can buy them from Amazon quite well. In the US, I know that Eden Botanicals are pretty great, and in the Europe, I know that there's Florihana, and also in Europe we've got Hermitage Aromatics, which is a site I love, but they have a minimum basket size of around 100 euros, so you can stick to either Amazon or some smaller shops as well. It will probably be fine. Just make sure that you buy an actual absolute, as you can see here, because if it's a fragrance oil, drop that. It's going to be just crap. It's not going to be good. It has to be an absolute. It can be Turkish rose, it can be bourbon rose, it can be Bulgarian, it can be Rose Otto, Rose de May. Just make sure that it is an actual absolute. And the main component, which will be 90% of our fragrance, is alcohol. In my case, I've got spiritus. You can buy perfumer's alcohol if it is available. If it's not, you can buy Everclear. But the main thing is 95% volume is ethanol. That has to be there. So vodka does not work here, and definitely be mindful, do not use isopropyl alcohol. It will smell terrible. So with everything out of the way, let's start working on this fragrance. I am starting with the hard part, which is vanillin. And for vanillin crystals, if you have a tiny spoon, that will work. What I can do is I can use a pipette for that. So we're creating this type of a spoon, and we have to be very careful now. I overdid it a bit, so what I can do is I can take out a bit of it, because it's the first and the most annoying ingredient out there to work with. I really hate working with powders and super resinous things, but it's alright. Okay, we got pretty close here. It's within the margin of error for sure. In general, it's not a huge thing if it's slightly off the mark. As you can see here, it's not too precise, so it is fine, and we are not working with the concentrations where you have to be super precise. Next, we're going with ISOE Super. That one we want to have 1.28 grams of. You can actually use the tare button to reset it. You've got the right measurements right there. So now what you can do is we want 1.28 here. So we've got the ISOE Super. Now we want to reset this. Now we want the Hedion, which is this beauty in here. We're aiming for 0.48 grams here. And now the fun part, let's go with Patchouli. And at the end, Rose Absolute. The patchouli has this type of a thing here. It's really nice to have a knife lying around for these occasions. Obviously, it is fine to use the little dropper here, but I like to use pipettes a lot more. For this one, we are aiming for 0.08, so 0.08, so 80. It has a really nice color to it. And last but not least, Turkish Rose. Smells absolutely amazing. I love the scent of it. Be really careful because it is quite expensive. And it is quite viscous. So what we can do now is add 4 grams of this alcohol, mix it in here, and afterwards put it all in this bottle and add the last 14 grams of alcohol also in this bottle. And it will leave us with 20 grams of fragrance for this whole thing. So let's add the 4 grams right now. Okay, now we've got our 4 grams of this alcohol, and afterwards, note for self, 14 more grams of alcohol. There are still some vanilla crystals in here. I'll let it settle. You can also mix it up like this a bit. I would probably cover this a bit with something, and after a few hours, it will probably be diluted, and we can then put it all in this little bottle. All right, we've spent a couple of hours just waiting for this. As you can see, there's still some sediment, but it should be fine. If you could see here, it's still kind of layered. The oil is still underneath the alcohol. It needs to be mixed well. So what we're gonna do is we'll take all the things that are here, we'll get them into here, and then we'll just fill it up with more alcohol. It will rinse off everything that's left over, and we'll just fill the whole 20 grams. So we've got here roughly 6 grams worth of juice together with alcohol. As you can see, the consistency of this liquid is oily, and it's normal because we are going to add more alcohol here. So let's get some more alcohol on this one. And now ideally we'd get 14 grams worth of alcohol in there. Eight grams, right? We need 6 more grams. As you can see, the liquid is quite clear now. Add 6 more grams. Your pipette may break. If it breaks like this, it is not really usable anymore. You have to drop it out and use a new one. Perfect score. I'll do this with it for a tiny bit so that everything we have here is as diluted as possible. And afterwards we take the bottle and finally fill it up. So almost the last step here is to measure out how long will the sprayer be. I think somewhere here will be just fine. And now we are going to screw it on. Leave it be for a few days, maybe a couple of weeks. It has to kind of mix together. And the amazing thing is, you still have quite a lot of patchouli left, quite a lot of Turkish rose, Isoe super, and hedione, and obviously vanillin. So you still have a lot of these materials left, and you have quite a lot of alcohol left as well. So you have left quite a few materials for at least a few more bottles, if not 10 or maybe even more bottles. So this is something that you should consider if you want to gift something very custom, very specific to a person that you love or appreciate a lot. And they will appreciate you as well because you, with your hands, made a fragrance for them. All right, let's get back then. So now you're equipped to give the best gifts out there. And if you're interested in Francesca Bianchi still, here I'm reviewing her house.